Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. In this podcast, we'll be having discussions around the secrets which attract lasting, healthy, fulfilling relationships, creating a healthy mindset, and what women should know and understand about men. Introducing your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts, relationship expert, trainer, speaker, and best-selling author of the Cupid's Bow technique. Lyn's mission is to have a positive impact in reducing divorce, domestic violence, and suicide.
Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. This is your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts. And today, listeners, we've got a very intriguing topic. It's unexpected sex problems after marriage. And I've got a great guest that's going to be very experienced in talking with me about this. Her name is Mary Whitman Ortiz. Her title is sex educator and relationship coach. So warm welcome, Mary.
Oh, thank you so much. Great to be here.
And I think this is going to be a fascinating topic because people naturally assume, I suppose, that maybe not things change that much after we get married, but actually they can, can't they? And not always for the better.
Exactly. They are coming off of romance and this swirl of emotions and just spontaneously loving and giving and choosing one another. And literally, day after they're married, they're like, put the brakes on. Maybe they'll make it through the honeymoon, but they realize there's a lot of responsibility, that they're not just in this party mode, and it really surprises them. And I literally had a couple in, and the husband said, but wait, if it's not spontaneous, does that mean we don't love each other anymore? So we had, quite a learning curve there to unpack, and not to insult him in any way, but just to say, oh, there's a whole nother realm past the spontaneous experience.
Yeah, and it still is nice to try and, I suppose, have a bit of spontaneity once you've got married. But obviously, I can speak from my own personal experience. You do sort of settle into a bit more of a routine, don't you, when it comes to trying to fit sex in and around your daily lives and work, and certainly once kids come along as well.
You do, but I draw the comparison. We're coming up on a new year. People have New Year's resolutions. They'll make those resolutions for their health, for their finances, for even how they're going to do other relationships and boundaries, and self-care. So why not prioritize sexual intimacy in marriage, so that if it's important to you, that you will have it at the top of your list to make sure that it happens.
Absolutely. So what are the unexpected common problems that you see from couples that happen related to sex after they get married?
I think stress in different stages, they don't realize that that's going to impact them. So stress can be work related. Stress can be stirred up by other health issues. Certainly every stage of childbearing is going to bring another layer of stress, and hormones get out of whack. It basically, you are not the same person the next day after you get married. I mean, and the day after that, and the day after that, we are forever changing, never staying the same. So that's a huge adjustment to think, oh, wait, we are always going to be different people. And we have to be able to find that bridge to stay close. So that's just a learning curve. And until you experience it, you really don't have a grid for it.
And what do you sort of recommend as solutions to managing that stress?
Being aware of it, number one. We ignore problems, we deny problems, we suppress problems, we call them something else. So you have to own that, hey, we are having a problem, whether it is stress related or hormone related or our stage in life. I certainly deal with a lot of couples and the wife's going through menopause. And if they're not prepared to make some of those adjustments, then they feel like, oh my gosh, our whole world crashed on us and nobody told us about it. So being able to address a problem is huge first step. But if you don't label it, then you don't know what steps to take to bring yourself forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think communication is key at every stage in a relationship. But like you say, once you've got married, or once you've committed to a long-term relationship and decided probably not to get married, but you just decide that you're actually going to start living together as a couple, things can change. And, certainly, like you said, once children come into the equation, and when women go through and men go through different phases in their life, such as the menopause, quite often we're all guilty, aren't we, of not communicating. Actually, I'm unhappy because of X, Y, or Z, because we think it'll just fix itself sometimes.
Very rarely do things just fix themselves. Yeah, and because sex can be a taboo topic, it's one of those that feels awkward, feels embarrassing. There's all kinds of messages from culture, from upbringing that influence you. And even if you marry your high school sweetheart, you're the person you grew up with on the same block, maybe you were neighbors, and you think everything about your life is the same and you should see this completely identically. You don't, you won't, because you are two very different people and your parents, your family were different. So that communication to address, oh, this is how I see it, and I didn't know that you saw it differently, and now we need to figure out what that looks like together.
So what are the common problems relating to sex that you feel are, I suppose, in today's world, the main issues that people aren't talking to each other about?
I have this phrase and I call it the sexual desire divide, because men and women want sex, experience sex differently. And I can't just say down the line that it's men only like this, it's women only like this, because certainly there's a lot of crossover. But we just assume that our spouse has the same desires and even the same way that they want to experience. It's just every phase of sex is so unique. Starting with the flirting and the interaction throughout the day. We have people thinking about love languages. Some people are really feeling connected through physical touch. Other people need those words of affirmation. So if you're going to start to build a great atmosphere to be together sexually, then of course it starts outside the bedroom, and you have to know what speaks to you and what speaks to your spouse, and have to be able to engage in that, even if it's not maybe your first way to connect.
And sometimes there can be a misunderstanding, even if you do understand that your partner's love language is different to your own, such as you mentioned words of affirmation. But sometimes a partner's words of affirmation might be an actual turn off for you rather than
Yes.
turn on.
Exactly. Yeah, I had one client, and her husband really was into using locker room descriptions, and it didn't just cause her to freeze, it caused her to run out of the room basically, and he had no idea that it was impacting her like that. And they had to have that conversation and say, okay, these phrases are okay, these phrases right here are questionable, these phrases over here, wow, they just do nothing for me. And I would appreciate it if you would choose some other phrase beside that.
Yeah, because I think I literally went through this with a previous boyfriend. I can remember, I really liked him at the time, but some of his phrases that he used, I can only assume that he used to, or still did whilst we were together, watch pornography, because some of the phrases that he used, it was like, you what? Excuse me, but he thought it was turning me on, but obviously it wasn't. It was really turning me off, to the point where I did actually end up, not having that conversation with him. But I can remember maybe, I should have, but this is, going back to when I was in my 20s, basically, so a long time ago. But I always remember that and think, well, maybe if I'd had those conversations with him and educated him about, what is acceptable usually for most women, or at least for me, in terms of phrases, then maybe that could have been different.
Absolutely. And couples will often ask me, so when is the best time to have these conversations? And certainly some of it can happen in the bedroom. Usually it's in a different mindset. So if you're going to dive deep into some of these questions, it sort of interrupts the flow for what you hope is about to happen. So I encourage, I get really specific on how you can have regular times for significant conversations. And having these conversations about sex is one of the topics, but anything that's delicate, whether it's finances or in-laws or, hey, just our recreation schedule craziness, but knowing that if you're frustrated and upset, that's probably not the best time to have a conversation that's going to be successful. So you ask them ahead of time and you make a plan, is this after dinner? Is this Saturday morning? Are we going to go for a walk and talk? Are we sitting outside in the cool of the evening? Finding out what your rhythm is. So you want to at least give yourself the best atmosphere to start the conversation, and then have an idea of just a couple of points that you want to address, because you can't pull out the whole laundry list. Then they're going to feel like you're beating them up. It's a sneak attack and nothing successful happens then. But realize if you can make this something that's more routine, then they're not going to be afraid when you say, oh, honey, we need to talk. Now those are the words, those are some of the scariest words to hear, unless you find the right time and make that be a consistent practice in your marriage.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to, especially, I've noticed with my community of women that I speak to, that sometimes they don't create a safe space for a man to be honest, because, if he does say something, they take it as rejection or, and then fly off the handle, and then it becomes a huge argument. So then they're not, going to feel comfortable at addressing anything again going forward, are they?
Yes. And that cycle just repeats itself until you do something to change how it flows. And also, you can look at, and some of these relationships may be scenarios that they're not going to get it. And you have a choice. Is this so detrimental to you as an individual to stay in a relationship at that point? So a lot of serious questions, but certainly ignoring the problem is not going to be beneficial to anybody.
No, 100% agree. And as I say, I suppose it also needs to be reciprocated as well, that men also need to create that safe space for women to be able to be honest and open without feeling that the man's going to take offense or get angry about something.
Yes, and I know the stereotype is that men like to fix problems. And so when a husband, excuse me, hears his wife describe something, then he may take it, may take it upon himself to make all these suggestions about what she should do to fix it, whereas she just wanted the space to share her thoughts, her feelings, and was not looking for a solution. And I always encourage couples to have like a code word or a timeout motion or something to go, whoa, we are going someplace completely different with this conversation. We need to press pause and get back in gear with what I was really asking for.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, it's a common issue for women to feel as though they are not being heard, because men automatically, like you say, generally speaking, want to fix the problem, but actually she just might want to just get some stuff off her chest and just feel like she's being listened to and being heard, rather than looking for any specific problem as such to be fixed.
Right. I was reminded of a couple that I worked with, and the wife was genuinely, what's a good word? Not sad, but she was concerned. She knew her view towards sex had changed, and the way they were expressing themselves was not the expectations that they had when they got married. Now, I think they've been married 20 years, so for real, it's okay for things to change. But she felt like maybe she was being a disappointment. She was letting him down. it was on her. She was letting it all be on her that she had changed. And that's one of the reasons that kept her from speaking up. And I think we had some great conversation to let her know that it's actually normal and good that you've changed. And the fact that you can put your finger on, I've changed, is going to be super, super helpful, and maybe even be a relief to your husband if somebody will actually address the elephant in the room, so to speak.
Yes, exactly. And change doesn't have to be bad change, does it? It can be quite exciting change.
Right, right. Yeah. When I talk to my couples when the wife is going through menopause, and then they come to me with varied understanding of the experience. And once again, until you've physically gone through it, then you've just read things and you don't know because your body is very, very unique. But I give them lots of encouragement that, hey, there are so many new positions you've probably never considered because you didn't necessarily need to. And now you need to consider different positions. So you shift your weight so that it's a better thing. Gosh, flexibility. I mean, so many things are impacted, but that could be good. You can look forward to this instead of saying, oh no, we can't do it like we used to do it, and that's terrible. Just to go ahead and decide this could be something good. It doesn't have to be bad just because it's a change.
No, and I understand that quite often, not just women, but men can grow up feeling shame around talking about sex and even things like masturbation, for example. And just because they've grown up, with certain ideologies, religious beliefs, or, parental influences that have made them feel that way.
Oh, that's true. That's true. There's so many, it's like your sex life lives in your head before it lives anyplace else. And you have to be aware of your choices, what got you there, and then decide how you're letting your spouse, your partner in on that. And can't just assume that they already know where you're coming from.
That is a big one, isn't it? Because quite often, especially if people have been living together a long time, whether that's through marriage or a long-term relationship, they automatically think, well, he should know that or she should know that, don't they? And we're not mind readers, any of us.
Yeah, I always tease about let's just have a billboard, but wait, I thought you knew that.
Exactly. And it can be quite frustrating then to think, well, like you say, once you do then have these honest and open communications and realize, actually, I didn't know he was thinking like that or felt like that, and vice versa, it can be a real eye-opener and actually a light bulb moment for a couples, can't it?
Yes, yes, for sure. Makes me think of another couple. Second marriage for both of them. Oh gosh, how long have they been married? I'll say 10 years, but 10 or less. Anyhow, she was kind of hesitant to say they were having some difficulties and she couldn't put her finger on it. And we just were kind of slowly talking it out. And finally, we do another session and invite her husband also. And the short story is that she was so thrilled when they got married that she wanted to do anything and everything sexually. And he was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Yes, I'm there for you. So they had a practice of sex twice a day. But now she is older and is like, but I love you just as much when we first got married, but this is just not how I want to express myself. And just the physical element of it was difficult. And so that took a lot of being courageous. I love to say, you have dare to love, because when you get that vulnerable, when you reveal those deep things, then you don't know how your spouse, your partner is going to respond to that. But I'm very thankful that they found a good compromise.
That's great. And it's lovely that, they did, because Otherwise, just resentments silently build up, don't they?
Uh,
And that can be a killer for a relationship eventually.
Absolutely. And sometimes we don't know resentment is growing. If you grew up in a household where emotions were suppressed, where you were silenced, even if it wasn't overly harmful, if you just didn't have that space for expressing yourself, you lived with resentment, lived with anger, could not label it and realize even some health issues that you might be going through because resentment is a part of your way of doing life. But I do know when couples have gotten on the other side of that, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm just free. I'm liberated. That to be able to speak without fear of walking on eggshells,
Mm.
it was the biggest game changer. And the beautiful thing is it can snowball in the right direction. A little bit of freedom, it brings more freedom, brings more joy, brings more closeness. So it doesn't have to always be the domino effect in a negative way. It can also transform in the positive way.
More often than not, I would say. I tell you what really worked for me in a relationship, and this is a past relationship, is that because he'd got such a very expressive face that could show anger, those non-verbal expressions, if you like, or eye rolling or anything like that,
Mm.
that quite often women get accused of. So that none of that could be present. We had a session, or more than one session actually, where we actually looked at a TV screen, which was just blank, it was turned off, and just spoke at the TV screen, letting one person at a time
Ah.
speak without being interrupted. And I found that worked very well because I wasn't distracted then by watching his reaction, his non-verbal reaction.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And it helped you focus on the words and
Yes,
the intent behind the words, not just the words themselves.
absolutely. And so I think, for some people that might be a better way sometimes to communicate than even face to face. If
Yeah,
somebody has got a very expressive face, and it can put you off, can't it, from continuing to say what you need to say to get off your chest.
it can, and hopefully they can learn and get past that because that would be very strange to always talk to the blank screen on the TV. But as a practice to
Yes.
develop it, that sounds very innovative.
It was something that, as I say, that really worked. Like you said, it doesn't need to be something that you do every time you communicate, but it certainly helps if you're worried about somebody, putting you off your stride because they've got a very expressive face or have a very expressive non-verbal language, a way of communicating that might then hold you back from being able to say what you need to say.
Yes, and that makes me think of another couple, and the husband sighed all the time, and she interpreted that as he's mad. I did something wrong. What did I do? And after a while, I don't even care what I did. And 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 when she brought it up, he would say, I'm just breathing. What's wrong with me just breathing? Don't you like the way I breathe? It just cycled out of control. Finally, they were able to see this is pretty humorous because you both have a point and you both have something that you can change, grow. And if you value your partner enough to be with them, then you can make those adjustments. The relationship is worth it, then adjustments are worth the effort.
What would you say to somebody that say they've had a conversation and it's gone relatively well, but they haven't sort of come to an agreement as to, how to fulfill each other's needs? In other words, one person is still feeling like they're not getting the needs met because they may want sex a bit more regularly than their partner or vice versa.
A couple of things come to mind. First of all, to thank your spouse for the conversation, thank them for even starting the conversation. Hey, I'm so glad we had that talk the other day. I really feel like we're a little closer now and we've got something we can work from. So we're putting a lot of love back into that. That's really honoring, respectful way to acknowledge because their spouse may have worked really hard just to do that step of the communication. But it's like, I believe in you, I believe in us, we're going to work this out together. So sewing in the positive there. And then another thing is, I love to encourage flirting. Oh my goodness, it's what happened a lot during your dating life, all of those romantic fun gestures. So I'm not going to tell anybody what to do or not do with their phone, but fun texting can keep things really lively and get conversation going where it doesn't feel in the right way. It might remove some of the emotion. I know we can lose the whole message if we rely on texting only. But if they perceive a message that's flirting and fun, and they're not getting undertones of another emotion, that might draw them forward to have more conversation.
Excellent. So, Mary, what is your best contact information should people want to find out more about this topic of anybody that might be in a situation that, of having unexpected problems in their sex life after marriage or living together as a couple?
Yeah, I love connecting with people on Instagram, and I'm under my name, Mary Whitman Ortiz, MaryWhitman Ortiz.
Or Z, as we say in the UK. We pronounce the Z as Z.
Oh, gotcha.
So that just to create that difference of anybody that might be in Europe might hear that differently. So any final words of wisdom or advice around, if somebody's listening that's got unexpected problems showing up after marriage regarding their sex life, Mary, that we've not already touched on?
I think one additional boost to your confidence to be able to start all the conversations is to see yourself with eyes of love. Give yourself some grace and realize that you can do this. And you can see the changes, and you can use your voice. So when you are at that place of believing in yourself, then you're going to insert some confidence into the relationship too. We want to decrease the anxiety and increase the peace and the energy.
Absolutely. And what would you say that to somebody that's probably reluctant to actually speak? Would you say, is there any merits in initially, in instigating a conversation to start with by writing a note or a letter in inviting that conversation to start with?
Oh, absolutely. It's funny. I wrote 2 books, and I included in them a template of a letter that you could get it going. What are some things that you want to share with your spouse about yourself? And that's kind of a first step to see if, hey, they want to share some things about them. Because
I think it's important, and you just mentioned it then, to say what you're feeling and what your wants and needs are, rather than pointing the finger and saying what's wrong with them. Obviously, that's not going to go so well if you're playing the blame game, so to speak.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for sharing your words of wisdom, Mary, and it's been a fascinating topic of conversation, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do this episode with me today.
Oh, I enjoyed it. It was great to connect.
So it just leaves me to say that true love starts with opening our hearts, and until next time, goodbye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Hearts Entwined podcast. You can follow Lyn via the Facebook group 2 Hearts Entwined, or search Lyn Smith, inspirational speaker, at LinkedIn, or email lyn@hearts-entwined.com. That's LYN@hearts-entwined.com. Remember, true love starts with opening our hearts.